This video is brought to you in part by the patrons of the Lazy Eyebrow, and from the comments and watch time from viewers like you. Thank you!
In short, once we storm the Nemesis, Group A will head off and rescue Carly. Group B will be with me and keep Megatron and Soundwave occupied while Group A is carrying out their plan. And Group C will stay here and defend the base just in case all of this is a red herring to get at the Ark. Now, if there's no more objections, that's our plan. Autobots, transform, and...
You call that a battle plan? Why, back in my day, we would have just charged in, all of us in one dropship. We would have marched up to Megatron and told him, I want a job. And we would have had it.
It's not like that nowadays.
Firm handshake to get what you want.
I'm trying to lead my troops in the battle.
Respect
you can't be doing this right
nice
now.
Hat. And whatever happened to living in an actual base?
What's wrong with
Get
the
a load of this boomer!
Why, hello YouTube! Greetings from the Lazy Eyebrow to a review of a kinda different nature. With the mad scramble to even try and attempt to keep up with War for Cybertron, sometimes it's nice to sit back and take a look where it all started. This is a review of some G1 reissues, and in one case, an original G1. So let's start things off with a little bug that could. G1 reissue Bumblebee. G1 Bumblebee is an oddity. I get the whole penny racer shtick that this line was going for before getting assimilated into the Transformers brand, so I guess this is more of a critique against the penny racers, I suppose. But man, if it didn't ever look like a VW Beetle slammed into a brick wall in a cartoony fashion at 88 miles an hour, like proportionally, it looked proper along the X and Z axis. But like, the Y? It's like someone hit scale Y 0.5 or something. But hey, it seems to have worked for the brand, considering it's still going today. As well as it had some licensed game and all sorts of consoles from a wide range of eras. I mean, clearly something's working. That aside, it's a neat little oddity, all chibi looking and everything. Like, it's the beloved car of the anime version of Jim Douglas, and not gonna lie, those fat back tires are kind of funny looking. Considering the logistics of the VW Beetle, that it's a rear-engined, rear-wheel drive car, it checks out. But this also says to me that G1B here is tuned for drag racing, which is kind of a funny thing if you think about it. I mean, drag beetles do totally exist, but it just looks weird. Another thing about G1B, though, is found on the back. On the Charo Q things, this would have been where you put your penny in if you wanted to offset the balance of the vehicle and make it like it was doing a wheelie as it dragged off. The sticker is kind of odd, though. I don't know if this is supposed to be engine detail or like a turbine or what it was attempting to be, but it's here, I guess. And of course, given this was a Transformers release, he gets the Autobot badge right up on top as well. What always gets me about this toy is this is always what I hear a good number of people wanting from their Masterpiece or Generations figures in terms of a Bumblebee. Like, they want a full cast of proportionate vehicles that more or less look like they scale well enough with each other, and then they want a scrunched up Beetle that looks like a clown car to display alongside it. I get the history of this vehicle. I'm not dissing that, like, at all. And why it looks the way it does and everything, but, like, it still boggles my mind. I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, to transform this thing, we gotta pull the wheels out, pull the front of the vehicle out, flip the toes up, and finally flip up the head. And here we have G1 Bumblebee. For what it was at the time, this is a pretty snazzy bar for a cheap little price, and for that matter, it still is. You get the whole front of a car's shoes, arms that proudly display all four tires and get to move about wildly, and a body that is whatever's left of the car, which is kind of how you should be doing your Transformers. Not vehicles that fold up into backpacks and whatever, but robots that are just, sure, I turn into a car, how could you tell? But, you know, they own it instead of the car being some sort of burden they have to carry around. All in all, it's neat to see where this robot started as I'm sure it's been done to death, but it's a classic look for a car robot, and it just works so well. All the original stuff aside, let's talk about the head. Boy, do I ever like what they did for the 2018 reissue. This isn't just a straight-up remake of the Penny Racer imposter of old. No, this is a fully updated head sculpting more in line with the cartoon instead of that odd mask that he was included with way back when. And honestly, that's kind of cool. As is, they only released 3 out of the 4 recolored Season 3 mini-bots, so sadly no pipes, and Bumblebee in that mix for some reason, all of which with updated paint and or head sculpts for better match their on-screen appearance. If they did this for a Brawn, I would be all over this, honestly. In fact, they also did this to Gears, though I could never find one. But that one didn't get a face update, unfortunately. Speaking of Gears, let's talk about the other figure that didn't get updated. Warpath! This is one I could find, and I picked it up thinking maybe it could sub in for a mini-bot Warpath in my unit classerations line because the Combiner Wars one just wasn't doing it for me. Turns out this wasn't doing it either, so, thank goodness for Kingdom. That's not to say it's all bad, though. I think it's neat for a little robot at this size in 1984 that had to be able to have a rotating turret. I also like how the tread's been molded so that where it rides up top seems to follow the natural weight of heavy treads traveling along the upper side. I think it's all really neat the way it's been designed. And all things considered, it's not a bad representation of the M551 Sheridan. I don't know tanks, but that's what the wiki says. And going by pictures, yep, that's about as Sheridan-y as one can Sheridan while also being beat red. I don't know how well the Kingdom version compares to all its Sheridan ship, but we'll cross that bridge once we get there, won't we? Other things this guy gets is a heat insignia, and yeah, it's an Autobot. Mystery solved. Another neat thing that I like, again considering his age, is this setup of basically a tricycle it runs on. These are rather unintrusive, and they get the job done. It's kind of cool. To transform this guy, just pull it apart, rotate the legs up while rotating the turret forward, and pull the arms apart, slide the turret back, and open up the head. So yeah, robot mode. And man, what a neat little figure. I feel like I'm saying neat a lot, but sort of applies. It's little, and for its time, it did some cool things for its size, and well, I don't know.
I just think they're neat.
Unfortunately, this guy doesn't have individual legs, but what are you going to do? It's also interesting to see where the Generations toy is pulling inspiration from, and, well, quite frankly, I think this is a cool face sculpt. Sure, the cartoon took it and heavily modified it like everything else they used for reference, but it's not a bad face sculpt by any stretch. There were certainly way worse entries in the Minibot lineup. His articulation involves a torso swivel so he can look left and right, arms that rotate the full way around, and technically he can look down too. Going back to those legs though, man, does he ever have what you'd call a stable base? Look at these pontoons he's rocking as Tootsies. Can he be knocked over? Probably not. You'd have a hard time trying to make it happen. It's probably the most stable bot there is, right up at the likes of Cliff Jumper. Kingdom Warpath also has big clompers, but they shorten the distance so it's a little more manageable. But I'm sure the Warpath Cybertron armor tree can fix that up in a jiffy. There we go. Now he's toy accurate and Voyager class. Nifty. So yeah, Warpath is a rough and tumble little robo. He's not great by any stretch, but for what he is, he's pretty neat. We're going to take a quick commercial break and move on to some bigger, but not necessarily better conditioned robots.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
This video was sponsored by Loot Crate. Loot Crate is a service where you spend a little bit of money and get this big old box. And I can't remember what the theme was this month, nor can I remember what the theme is the coming month, but yeah, I ordered one of them. And we're gonna see what's in them. I know a shirt. They did ask my shirt size. And I'm guessing this is the shirt. And it's... oh, look at that. It's He-Man. Oh, it's got Skeletor on it. I'll be honest, the only thing I know about He-Man is the whole the song and Skeletor's iconic voice and He-Man. That's kind of neat. A Venom Standy. In this box you seem to get a... oh, that's kind of cool. It's like a comic book cover. Makes for a neat shelf display item, regardless whether or not it can... it doesn't look like you can open it, but that's okay. That looks kind of cool. You get a Fight Club keychain. Ooh, that's kind of rubbery. I might actually put that on my keys. That's kind of cool. You get a comic book action POW pin. Maybe we'll put that on the shirt. Doesn't go though, it's not a comic thing. I think this is a Mortal Kombat reference handkerchief thing. I'm assuming goes over my face, or maybe it's a mat. I don't know what this... oh, it is Mortal Kombat too. Flip it over. There it is. Oh no, I had it right. Mortal Kombat thing. Neat! So yeah, there's a link in the description where you can go to check and order your own loot box. Use the code LAZYEYEBROW to get 15% off your purchase. And yeah, this is actually kind of cool. I mean, I'm kind of digging this whole thing. And hey, I got a He-Man t-shirt. I mean, that's kind of cool. This is, yeah, so back to our review.
We now return to the Transformers.
Welcome back. On then to a beat-up original. This is G1 Trailbreaker that I found for $10 at a thrift store. Unfortunately, he's missing his truck bed canopy, and therefore his head, but I figure it was still worth having as Trailbreaker turns into one of my favorite trucks ever built, a third-generation Toyota Hilux. Trailbreaker specifically with a 4-wheel drive package and what should be a camper? Seriously? Who's going camping in this thing? Jeff Foxworthy? In any case, Trailbreaker in his black Hilux pickup truck mode. And it just goes to show how much quality went into these toys in the Diaclone era. Like, these things could easily be confused as O-scale model vehicles. The details are just spot on, from the round headlights, the 4-section front grille, the rubber tires that aren't just rubber but have actual treads molded into them. They even have branding too, though I have no clue what Desert Dog formula is a reference to, but I guess that's a thing. Something else I discovered, vehicle accuracy-wise in my research, this stripe wasn't just for the funsies. It was apparently a thing that some of the Hiluxes in Japan had. However, I can only find 2 photos of it existing. This does explain, though, why the Diaclone blue or the Joestar yellow ones also had the stripe in black and not a color-matched blue or yellow. It's because this is a factory-applied stripe. It's an interesting bit of automotive history I discovered and makes me appreciate the detail of this figure all the more. Something else I find really cool is the truck bed. Okay, so it doesn't have a tailgate, sure, but the way the feet are designed, it gets this nice smooth bed that you can put cargo in, and the arms at the side are easily the wheel wells in the short box Hilux, and I just think visually it all looks really good despite the lack of a complete package, i.e. the canopy. The other thing I love about the Diaclone line is particularly the trope on this channel, it scales amazingly. I mean, not everything in the car robots line did, mainly the ones that turn into large vehicles specifically, like Inferno or Prime, but like, you put the Hilux next to the 935 and it's like, mwah, beautiful. Mind you, a side benefit of figures getting smaller these days is that a lot of other figures scale just about as well as the old G1 figures. Like, you want some Studio Series in there? Scaled. You want some of the Earthrise line in there? Scaled. More or less. I mean, it's not going to be 100% dead on point considering different lines with no intention of scaling vehicle mode or what have you. But like, it's all relatively close to each other and I'd believe it. This being a Diaclone figure, he also retains his open up roof for some sort of driver to sit in the cab. Like, that's a thing. But the only thing I have that'll even remotely fit is a 3D printed HO scale 6-foot guy that's totally not an Oscar scaled down or anything. I don't know. Diaclone be whack sometimes. On to transformation then. First thing we gotta start with is opening up the doors Gullwing style. So yeah, that means he could totally be in league as like a weird DeLorean imitation. And no, this isn't a Back to the Future reference. Marty's truck is an 85, so basically a Generation 4 Hilux. But that doesn't stop me from wanting another Back to the Future crossover with the Earthrise Trailbreaker with a bit of retooling. I think that'd be cool. Anyway, we flip down the feet, rotate the legs, and separate them. And butt mode, with no head. Or any of the other accessories. I won't dwell on this too much. I'm considering designing a head to slot into the Diaclone cab just for the sake of it being displayable, and for that matter, we don't have any hands or missiles either, so that's also on the to-do list, but all that aside, I really like this robot mode. So often the headlights are used as a chest with some robot-y bits making up a belly. It's really unique to see the windshield be the chest that extends out to this really round belly that is the entire hood of a truck. It's not athletic in any way, it's a little bit rotund even, and basically it's nice to see a wide variety of shapes within the robots instead of them all just being superhero physiques, running around and winning battles. Like, there's all sorts of shapes and sizes within Cybertron, and I think that's kind of cool. It's also neat to see where Hoist and Trailbreaker draw their visual roots from. For those about to ask, yeah, Trailbreaker has been modified, the back fenders have been cut and glued to the sides of the legs. Doesn't hinder transformation in the slightest, and whenever I get to it, I'll go over it in greater detail how it's been accomplished. So that was Trailbreaker. I wish he was complete as I really do love his alt mode, but picking this up for $10, I can't really complain too much, especially when this tomfoolery exists. On then to a quote-unquote complete figure, G1 Optimus Prime, the 2019 Reissue edition. The last time I covered this figure was my 5th review and I was still figuring things out, so I think it's high time to really go over this with a modern critical look. So first off, this figure doesn't come with the trailer, which is odd, considering he's almost as expensive as Earthrise Prime. I'm not entirely sure what makes Reissue so expensive to make, but I know the same thing happened with Astrotrain, where he actually was the same price as Siege Astrotrain, and there's no way it costs the same just purely in materials to make the same thing. Or maybe it is, and diecast is expensive to make. I don't know, I don't do their budget. Regardless, 2019 left us with this. Optimus Prime, cab only, like someone lost his trailer and you found this at a garage sale, but it was really well maintained or something. He also doesn't have his stickers applied yet, so let's fix that real quick as it came in the box. There we go! So G1 Optimus is based, and don't take this as fact, this is just as far as I could tell because most of the info I found is either generic or labels the wrong truck, but my research has indicated that he is a 1979 Freightliner FLT 9664, and not any of the FLA line. You can tell this by the way the front bumper is styled, how the grille is with the extra grille up here, the rounded versus square headlights, not counting the hole they added for the hands later on, as well as other truck details that are very apparent in the 9664. What makes this definitely not the FLA, as I once said, and what others keep saying? Well, the FLA was in production between 1987 and 1997. In other words, well after Diaclone was a thing and subsequently imported to the rest of the world as Transformers. Conversely, an argument can be made that it's the WFT8664T, as TF Wiki states. However, seeing as how it's the same truck with the caveat of being discontinued in 1976 when the Motor Company was beginning to fold, I'm more inclined to say it's probably the FLT versus the WFT. But at the end of the day, it's mostly the same truck, so moving on. As a truck, though, I feel it does exceedingly well. I mean, aside from the solid chassis at the back of the truck, instead of just being a frame and a horseshoe, this is such a clean alt mode. One that other Optimus Prime figures seem to have trouble nailing down as clean as this gets it. Mind you, this is also at the cost of some of the robot mode, but really, you can't deny how clean this truck mode is. It is clean! You get rubber tires, again with that whole Desert Dog branding on them, so it's nice to see that still going, whatever it means. Just all in all, this is a fantastic take on the old 80s cow-over truck, and quite frankly, I'm happy to have again, as it's just such an iconic alt mode. However, the one thing he doesn't have is a trailer, as mentioned previously. And well, what's G1 Prime without a G1 trailer? So let's bring in Earthrise. I have felt this trailer really doesn't work for Earthrise Prime, and it's not like it can hitch into the G1, until today that is. Just to see what it would look like, I designed an adapter hitch for G1 Prime to interface with the 5mm peg to see how it looks, and well, let's see how it looks. Honestly, not bad. A lot better than it looks on Earthrise or Siege, that's for sure. Like, yeah, the bottom of the trailer sits way too high, but aside from that, I feel like it works way better here than on any other Prime figure that's released. So, I think I'm going to stick with this. If you want to do it too, the link to the file can be found in the description below. I mean, it's not like I display Earthrise in vehicle mode anyway, and the G1 figures almost certainly do, as it's their best mode, which isn't exactly the case for most of their current counterparts, as they have a definite robot bias, and that's okay. For robot mode, take the arms out and put them to the side. Flip the head up, toes down, move the legs down, and watch them separate on their spring-loaded, graduated stepped ratchet joints. Pop the hands in and we have ourselves a Prime. There is no denying how iconic this figure is. Like, you look at this robot, you know full well he's a robot made of truck bits, but good grief, he wears it well! Like, the majority of the car bots, you get this kibble at the back as they just let the roof hang off, but not this guy. Like, all of it, well, maybe aside from those bicep flaps at the back, just contained it so well! And easily where modern engineering can do small tweaks to improve the design to give us what the cartoon did. Or, you know, we can just put the bicep flap somewhere else. I guess that's also an option. I've always found it weird, the sticker detail here. I get the cartoon artists were given an unstickered figure to base their reference work on when making the cartoon, but I wonder why this didn't make it in, but the yellow arrows just materialized out of nowhere and whatnot. Another thing I find interesting is the shin vents are blue. Like, I've just gotten used to silver vents being here for so long that I just assumed it was a cartoon detail, Mandela effect style. But no, it wasn't that either, which is why MP44 or any of its third-party competitors don't have it. As for articulation, his arms rotate at the shoulder, bend and swivel at the elbow, rotate at the wrist due to the hands that can peg in, and can also be easily lost for that matter. Legs go fully backwards, knees bend 90 degrees, and toes go fully out. Honestly, with how much he has, I'm surprised this came out in the 80s. Like, arm articulation is nothing special when compared to other entries in the series, but there's leg and foot articulation too? Crazy. And that knee isn't even relevant for transformation like everything else he has. Like, as far as robots go, this probably is the better ones that Diaclone made. As for accessories though, the reissue comes with 2 ion blasters. One that's the thinner original one. Nothing's been changed about it in the slightest, and I really gotta wonder why this thing was designed this way at all. Like, it had a molded trigger they knew wouldn't fit, and they decided to make it flush with a peg? What even was the point of that? What was the point of the box art holding the trigger that couldn't be held? I don't know, this thing makes no sense. Well, the reissue team seems to get the point that that's a dumb idea and redesign the Ion Blast to be a little more cartoon accurate. And it's included as well with a longer handle, so you're not forced to break your hand anytime you try and fire your main line of offense. A fun byproduct of this, though, is it gets the dual-wield Ion Blasters, but an even more fun byproduct of this is that the hands are 5mm ports. So, feel free to replace both of them entirely with printed Ion Blasters that is wholly accurate, or give him Silverbolt's gun, because why not? Devastator's weaponry? Why not? Having fun with science? Absolutely. Literally anything is possible with a 5mm system in a printer. And I love that G1 Prime gets to be inducted into this line of figures that can interface with this stuff. Optimus really was fantastic, wasn't it? Just everything about it is superb. The range of movement is far better than a lot of other releases from the era. And I don't know how else to say this icon of a figure was the right choice for the leader of the Autobots when it came time to make the cartoon, because it's just great, guys. What do you want me to say? So that was my review for these 4 Autobots. For what they are, they're fantastic. I'm slightly bummed for the price that Optimus was trailerless, and I really do wish to complete Trailbreaker one day, but I'm happy with what we got. It's cool to see what they were and where they are now in terms of modern day figures. Right then, back to our regularly scheduled modern reviews. This has been the Lazy Eyebrow. So, thank you all for watching that wonderful video, and thank you to Lootbox for sponsoring this video. That kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it? It's an interesting shirt. I don't really know what to think about He-Man, but shirt feels nice, so that's at least cool. Yay! So yeah, thank you all for watching. This one was kind of a weird one. I filmed it well before the Starscream review, but just kind of sat around while I did other things, and now I'm kind of between reviews, so I figured it's time to dig it out and get it out before I get overwhelmed with other things. And there's a siren ruining this tape, but I'm gonna go with it anyway. Thank you all for watching. See you all in the next review, where hopefully I do something different. I'm thinking of doing Studio Series Jazz next, as I've got lots to talk about with that one. So until the next time, we'll see you later. This has been Lazy Eyebrow.